there's a woman that is just as much of a gangster as any of the men. In fact,
She's
probably even more so. She is a badass mofo.
Welcome to this part 2 episode of Talk Murder to Me. We are covering Bonnie and Clyde.
So in the first episode, we talked a little bit about the robberies and how his firearms were superior to all the police officers that were trying to take him down. I mean, it was literally a losing battle for them because they had these small caliber pistols and Clyde had these sawed-off shotguns, and more importantly, he had something called a Browning automatic rifle. Now, I've shot in a lot of weapons in my life, but I decided to contact our friend Talcos Primo Allen because he is a firearms expert. He grew up around firearms, so he can tell us everything about the Browning automatic rifle, or the BAR, that is important to the story.
Clyde fell in love with the Browning automatic rifle, which most people refer to as the BAR. BARs from Browning were used in the First World War, and before that, after the war, though, they were actually referred to as Colt monitors, as Colt got the licensing from Browning after the war. So the Browning automatic rifle that Clyde Barrow used was a Colt monitor. Going to come in a little bit later on here. What made the BAR superior to all other firearms of the time? And it really wasn't anything to do with anything in particular about the firearm that made it superior. It was simply the fact that it was a big stinking machine gun that shot a big stinking round. And most of the police officers, they used pistols or shotguns, and so having a light machine gun, which is what a BAR is a heck of an advantage. You can think back to the bank robbery in California, 15, 20 years ago or something, where the police officers only had pistols and shotguns, and the bank robbers had fully automatic light machine guns. I think they were using 249 saws or M16s or some AK-47s, I think might have been what it was. But the police were essentially helpless in that moment until they went and got some firearms from a gun dealer outside of that area and then brought them in, and then they could actually deal with the guys.
So how did he get his hands on a BAR?
From what I read, the police officers did not even have this powerful of a weapon. Mm-hmm. But Clyde, as his 2-year crime spree continued to evolve, he started breaking into armories of National Guard units. And
you would think that it would be super hard to break into the Army or the National Guard.
No.
No,
not the National Guard. Maybe the Army. I mean, I was in both. Oh, I was in the National Guard when I first got in.
I just feel like it was just...
I'm just saying. I would imagine they had a lot of times had night watchmen there too, you know? But,
yeah.
I mean, if you go in with 5 guys and there's maybe 2 watchmen, you can easily take them hostage and get all the guns and then, haul ass.
About Clyde constantly breaking into National Guard armories, there's actually 2 reasons for this. They were available to the general public, but same as with today when it comes to machine guns, they were really expensive, especially during the Great Depression. I think it was something like $300-400 for one of them.
Wow.
And that's all the way back then. So you can see that was a lot of money to just be outright buying. So stealing them was obviously the way to go. They also had black market stuff they could do to get their hands on them. But a side note that I made sure to mark down in my notes was that one of the other reasons he broke into the National Guard armories was for armor-piercing rounds. That was a big thing that he liked using, and that was really one of the only ways to get them.
Bonnie and Clyde, they're known by the media, but they're still just murderers and gangsters. They haven't reached Bonnie and Clyde status. But Bonnie has been riding with Clyde for months now, and she occasionally sees her name in the paper, and at first it's like, oh, there's this unknown woman, and maybe she's being held hostage. She didn't like that. She wanted to be the star.
I was just gonna ask what her role has been, because the past 2 murders, she wasn't there.
At first, her role was nothing, just taking care of Clyde, because she's not going to go in and hold up a service station like two men can, She can't rob a bank.
Until she does make herself useful.
Yeah, Clyde teaches her how to do this stuff.
So romantic. Instead of going to the batting cages and showing how to, swing at a pitch, she's showing her, here's how you shoot a gun, darling.
I'm sure people do that today, though, too. Like, we have rifle ranges and...
Yeah, we do. But,
So.
We don't use live targets for the most part.
yeah,
when
no.
people do that.
No.
Okay,
Hopefully not.
I'll show you how to rob a liquor store. Let's go.
let me talk about the time when Bonnie and Clyde actually made their name. It wasn't in a good way, but you see all these pictures of Bonnie and Clyde. Well, how does these newspapers getting these pictures? They're not sending them in, okay?
Or are they?
Here's what happened.
She's taking selfies.
With love, Bonnie.
All right, you're looking at Joplin, Missouri. They're actually taking a vacation from crime at this point. Now, Buck and his wife, Blanche, is with them.
Is this a TripAdvisor spot?
Yeah.
Oh my
my
God.
goodness.
Is Bonnie and Clyde's garage apartment.
Wow, it actually looks surprisingly nice.
Yeah. So you have W.D. Jones, which was part of their gang, a younger guy. And you have Buck, so Clyde's brother, and his sister-in-law. What is it?
Sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law, Blanche. And then you have Clyde and Bonnie.
Okay, so that's the couple that you always see that's with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's his brother, older brother, and
Okay,
wife.
and Blanche. Okay.
They go to Joplin, Missouri. Okay, they're in Missouri now, and they decide to rent this apartment right here. I'll put the picture on talkmurder.com.
Is this the same Joplin that had that horrific tornado?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, very good.
Also, did they use different names to register?
Yes, they did. That's a good point, Jen. On April 1st, Buck and Blanche, using the pseudonym of Callahan, rented an apartment near the intersection of 34th Street on Oak Ridge Drive in Joplin. The exact odd address was 3347 and a half 34th Street. What the fuck?
When I get my own house, if I ever get my own house, I'm gonna make my address like so obscure. Like
Like you're going to build your own road for this house as well, or?
yeah, why not?
Oh, okay.
Why can't you just so as long as you notify the mailman, why can't you just change the number on your house? This is a legitimate question.
I don't know. I mean, I can't change the number on my house.
Well, no, because you have an HOA.
Because it's not set by you, Jen.
Who's it set by?
The government. That's
So
so the
can't-
mail they don't have to get confused by your one weird house number.
Well, can't I just like email the government and be like, "This is my new address, thanks." Like when you're doing
Yeah, and you will get no mail ever again.
Why if the mailman is driving and he's like, "Oh, there's 16 3/4."
I don't think it works like that, Jen.
Why? It should. Why can't I live wherever I want?
I think it's one thing if you're like building the street, but you have to like file what you're naming the street. You know what I mean? And then sure, if you want to assign a number to it,
All right.
that's 42 and a half.
I feel like all I would have to do is just register my address, though.
No.
Well, that's dumb.
Small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a bathroom. So it's pretty nice. They had the garages downstairs because they didn't go out and buy cars. Obviously, they have
sold them.
stolen cars. And the guy that they rented it from, the apartment, kind of knew something was suspicious because only a gangster would back in the garage, you know.
So they can have an easy getaway.
Exactly.
That's like people who back into parking spaces nowadays. Like, please try to park straight. Like, don't be a douchebag.
I know, it just takes so much time to back into a space. Like
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I've done it.
I'll pull through,
Yes,
but
totally.
why? Why you gotta take the time to back into a space? And it's always people that drive big trucks. It's like,
Yeah,
look
because they know that they're going to have a hard time backing out.
look what I can do.
April 13th, 1933.
Ooh, getting closer.
The Joplin police decided to raid the apartment. Now, they rented this apartment in Joplin as a vacation to get away from all this for a little bit. Now, the Joplin police were suspicious. They didn't know anything about the Barrow Gang. They literally thought they were bootleggers. The way they back their car in and pay with everything with loose change and all this stuff, like, you know what I'm saying, is very suspicious.
Well, could you, just for our audience, and definitely not for me, define what a bootlegger is? Asking for a friend.
It's, during the Prohibition, it was the bootlegger, the guys that sold whiskey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They would get whiskey in and sell it.
Because when I hear bootlegger, I think of like people selling movies.
What?
No, movies when they film them in theaters.
Yeah.
Or like burned CDs and stuff.
So they thought this gang was just selling CDs and DVDs.
Yeah.
iPods that fell off a truck.
Tickets.
Yeah. They assembled a 5-man squad, which was not even nearly enough.
No.
Because they had no idea who they were getting involved with. Now, the highway patrolman in charge of the situation eventually had an idea that it may be the Barrow Gang, but he wasn't 100% sure. Anyway, the police had an armored car, which was good for them. The armored car was going to block the exit so they can't make an escape. And we'll see how that works out. It was about 9 a.m. when the cops drive their cars up. Harry McGinnis, one of the police officers, hopped out and fired 3 shots through the garage glass window. WD was struck in the side by one of those shots. Clyde fired back with a shotgun and hit Patrolman McGinnis, right square in the face, on his left side and in his right arm, which almost severed from his entire body. So
wow.
his arm literally almost came off.
Yikes.
He dropped into the driveway. One of the other police got out of the car, shot a few times, picked up McGinnis's revolver, ducked around the side of the garage. The whole gang knew they had to get out, but they didn't know how many cops were out there. They didn't know if they were surrounded or not. But they did see McGinnis's body that was blocking the path. So Clyde and Buck actually opened the garage door, and it wasn't an automatic thing back then. They had to do it by hand. In midst of all this firing going on, everyone's firing back and forth. They're opening the garage door. They actually drag McGinnis's body out of the way so they could get their car out. Everyone gets in. Blanche gets in. Bonnie gets in. WD gets in. And one shot actually came in, hit Clyde in the chest, but it struck in the button of his shirt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was a small caliber pistol, so it wasn't anything big. It did penetrate the skin, but it wasn't, fatal. Now, I do want to say, in the middle of the fight, Blanche had a dog named Snowball. It's like a little pipsqueak, like one. I was thinking like a little white, like beep, beep,
like a Maltese type dog.
Yeah.
Or like a little Westie.
Pomeranian.
Yeah. Now the dog,
yeah, Pomeranian.
Snowball, the dog, runs out into the street.
Oh no!
I'm not gonna. But no. So no one knows what happened to Snowball. He may have lived a healthy, happy life. He didn't get
until
shot.
He died at a normal age.
He just ran off. He's like, fuck this shit, I'm gone.
I'm out. Oh, what was that terrible movie we were watching? I mean, the movie itself wasn't like the worst movie we've ever seen. But when they let the dog go, the Netflix movie.
Oh, Silence.
Oh, man. Oh, and then we were watching that I Am Legend movie where the dog dies there too. I just don't like it when the dogs die. I'm not
very
okay.
sad.
Okay, so they were able to shoot at the armored car, and they have a BAR, so the bullets go through, hit the driver's leg. Then Clyde rams the driver in the armored car enough to get out. Now, this is during all the bullets and confusion. Everyone's in Clyde's getaway car, and he basically, as you see the garage right here, the car was right in front of the garage. He goes around and escapes, and they can't catch up with him, obviously, because he's in the fastest car on the market, like always. His Ford Flathead V8. And that's how that went. Now, at the end of the day, he was charged with another 2 murders. There's 2 more police officers dead. 2 cops had died during that event that was like just not a mishap, but it didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now the fun starts, because at this point, the news media is still covering Clyde, and now they know Bonnie's name. They're not famous. They're getting famous, kind of like us. Like, we're getting famous. But they're not really famous yet. But after this incident, because once the cops showed up unannounced, it's not like they had time to grab any of their shit. They left everything, including a camera, one of those little Polaroid cameras, the first ones made, with undeveloped film in it. And the film is all the famous photos you ever see of Bonnie and Clyde. That is where it comes from. This is when Bonnie and Clyde become Bonnie and Clyde, because the press gets a hold of these photos and they go absolutely nuts. Number one, the gangsters they have real faces. They're human. And of course, number two, there's a woman that is just as much of a gangster as any of the men. In fact, probably even more so. She is a badass mofo. And these pictures I'm showing you now is what made them famous. And this incident in Joplin, if it wasn't for this incident, these pictures would have never been out. These are the first pictures that the press saw. They saw these two gangsters, not only... They're going around killing people and living a life of crime, but then they see these photos, they're smiling and having fun and acting all playful. It's just the craziest thing. They're play acting, and she's got a shotgun. Women don't carry shotguns in the 30s. They don't, this doesn't happen.
Right.
And she's play acting.
Oh, yeah, you can see she's shortened the barrel on that.
Yeah. So she carried this sawed-off Model 11. One of our Tacos Primos and gun expert, Alan, will explain that.
As far as Bonnie's Remington Model 11, the question was the purpose of sawing off a shotgun. Really, the only reason that you saw off the barrel of a shotgun is to shorten it for maneuverability, but it also helps to increase the timeliness of which the shot will actually start to spread. With a longer barrel, it keeps the shot pattern in a tighter pattern for the longer distance. When you saw a barrel short, it allows that spread to open up at a quicker rate. So it makes it a more effective close range type of a weapon, but the downside of that is it decreases your effective range. So you're not going to hit anything real far away because your shot pattern essentially opened up and just dissipated. It can still be effective, 50, 100 feet or something like that, but that's the real main reason why people do that.
Number one, Bonnie has a cigar in her mouth. Okay, women didn't smoke cigars back then. Now, after these pictures were published, she became more active in the media. She was trying to tell reporters that she didn't smoke cigars because she thought that, she didn't like herself looking like that. When this photo of Bonnie Parker appeared in the newspaper and magazines around the country, the Barrow Gang immediately became a national sensation. The cigar dangling from Bonnie's mouth caused even more frenzied comment than the pistol in her hand. In 1933, decent American women discreetly puffed cigarettes and never inhaled. After the photo appeared, Bonnie tried in vain to convince the public that she did not smoke cigars. But she has a pistol on her hip. She's leaning up against the car. I mean, this is something no one's ever seen before.
Very seductive pose.
Yeah, so she added the sex into the gangster, too.
Oh, look at his car. He's got the two guns in the car.
Yeah. Now,
the other one's leaned up against.
It's funny because these pictures, the ones from Joplin, are different from the future pictures that they would take together. And one fact, in these pictures, the license plates are showing. And the other pictures I'm going to show you later, there's always Clyde's jacket over the license plate because the cops started tracking the license plates and they could track their movements. And Clyde actually learned that on the road. So it was like a romance, I mean, it was crime and it was sexy. It was like romantic as fuck. Wasn't it?
I don't know, I guess.
Look at this picture. I mean, if you're a woman,
that's cute.
if you're a girl, you're reading the newspaper and you see that, you're going to be like, man, she is so lucky, even though they're on the run. Most people in this time period are struggling to survive, barely eating. And these guys, they're barely eating too, but they're traveling all over the United States. They're doing fun, adventurous stuff, Isn't it crazy?
It is.
Like, I mean, how would you not fall in love with this couple? And the fact that they didn't even want these photos out. But these photos, once Joplin once Joplin happened, these photos, the newspapers went buck wild with them. And America fell in love with this couple. They fell in love with this crime couple. I'm telling you, it's just amazing. Now, right after the Joplin incident, they get famous. But things start going downhill really fast. This is more the decline and fall of Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Mm-hmm. And it all started on the night of June 10th, 1933. Okay, they were in the country. Clyde was driving his usual 70 miles an hour. It was pitch black. He couldn't see what was coming up on the road. Bonnie was sat right in the front seat with him. WD was in the back, and he didn't see it, but he raced right past a detour sign. Seconds later, the road ended. Clyde Barrow's car with Bonnie and WD in it, they go flying off this like ravine, like the car is airborne.
I thought that happened because I was like, I thought they drove off a cliff.
The car flips several times, and the author says in this book that many accounts claim that the V8 burst into flames, causing Bonnie's terrible leg injuries, but that didn't actually happen. What happened is the battery in the car started leaking acid, and Bonnie was stuck in the V8.
Oh, no.
And it literally burned her leg almost completely off. W.D. Jones says, quote, "The hide on her right leg was gone from her hip down to the ankle. I could see the bone at places." Now, you're fugitives on the run. You're running out of money. To get money, you have to hold up places. Now you got Bonnie. She may die because this injury is so bad. They can't just be like, go to the doctor,
right.
You know?
You got to suck it up.
So now, you remember how I told you, if you want to find Clyde Barrow, you follow the trail of stolen cars. Now you can actually follow the trail of stolen cars and the trail of used bandages left behind. Because many of the farmers recovered a lot of these bandages.
Nasty.
And would turn them into the police and be like, his gang's been through here. Yeah. And so her leg was so bad, they didn't think she was going to survive at one point. She ended up surviving, and in that, like the Highwaymen, the Netflix series, you see her limping, and that's because the couple now have another unique thing in common. They both limp. The whole time after, they're still running, driving hundreds of miles a day, but Bonnie's in intense pain. They're going over dirt roads and everything else. They're having trouble finding the burn salve to put on Bonnie's leg, and then they risk stopping for bandages and hydrogen peroxide and stuff like that because the locals would turn them in. So now they're actually going downhill. Plus, it's only Clyde and WD, and WD is about to leave the gang for good.
What happened to his brother and Blanche? They just kind of like hop on and off.
Yeah, they hop on and off. A lot of people hop on and off.
It's so weird. It's like, how do they communicate? Like, yo, I'm picking you up here. You know?
Okay.
If I were them, I would have started to rob convenience stores or pharmacies.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they must have had to because of her leg.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they just don't have the luxury of waltzing into any store.
Well, yeah.
At one point, they did get in another debacle with some police, and Buck was with them at the time, Buck and Blanche, and I'm going to read this. Using the interior door in the right-hand cabin that opened directly into the garage, Bonnie hobbled into the V8. Clyde and WD climbed in, but Buck and Blanche had to leave their cabin through the front door to get to the car. And as they slammed the door open and began running to the garage, a bullet from Baxter's machine gun struck Buck in the left temple and exited out of his forehead, taking away part of his skull and exposing his brain. He dropped between the cabin door and the car. So now they're carrying Bonnie, and Buck has got a hole in his head. He's not dead.
He's not dead.
He's not dead. He's still breathing, but they have to pour hydrogen peroxide in the hole in his skull constantly, to stop the infections.
How did he not die?
Yeah, he lost part of his skull.
Well, he eventually died, obviously, and Blanche...
Like, shortly thereafter, as
Yeah.
a result of that wound? Oh.
And Blanche, who was in the car at the time, turned her face to the right, and that was the side where most of the posse were standing and firing. One of their bullets struck the car's back window. It exploded. Though her body protected her mortally wounded husband, glass splinters drove straight into both of Blanche's eyes.
Ew.
She screamed, "I can't see," but Clyde had to concentrate on getting them out of there and keep going around a sharp corner and turn off into the night. This is when they were stopped at Red Crown Tavern, so they actually rented out both of the cabins, which was very suspicious. And they rented it out for 3 people, even though they would buy 5 dinners. Because this was after Bonnie was hurt, so she needed to be in a cabin. Then the cops got wind that they were there. That's when this happened. So now, I mean, you can see they're going downhill. They literally are about out of options here.
So did both Buck and Blanche die after this incident?
No, Blanche actually lived. And
Oh, that's right. I forgot you said Blanche lived.
Blanche actually lived, and a lot of the information that comes from the story was published in her memoir called Fugitives. I didn't read, but the author has...
They poured hydrogen peroxide directly into the hole in Buck's skull and then did their best to wrap his head. A pair of sunglasses helped to protect Blanche's eyes. They drove towards Des Moines, pausing occasionally to change the bandages on Buck's head and Bonnie's leg, tossing the soiled ones onto the side of the road and not realizing that they were leaving a clear trail for pursuers. All day, other motorists reported finding used bandages to police. These Iowa lawmen knew about the shootout the night before. Platte City Police had issued regional bulletins, so they were already on the lookout for the Barrow Gang, with an injured Bonnie Parker and now at least one other member badly hurt and bleeding hard.
Yeah.
Was she blind after?
Yeah, she was blind in one eye, and she was lost almost all of her vision in the other eye. This photo I'm showing you is right when they caught Blanche and Buck. If you see, Blanche is wearing sunglasses. She's also looks like a skeleton. She's so skinny.
Yeah.
They weren't eating at the time at all. Blanche was, at this picture, she was 85 pounds.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, she was tiny. Now, her husband has a hole in his head. He just got caught. And the reason this photo you're looking at is so iconic is because the news person that took the photo raised up the camera, and Blanche, not being able to see straight, thought it was some sort of rifle or shotgun, and that all these cops around were going to execute her right on the spot.
Wow.
So he raises his camera up, and she screams right as he takes this iconic photo of her screaming.
Wow.
So she was terrified. She was about to get executed right there. And you can see how many people were around. There's a lot of people around. I urge you to go to Netflix and watch The Highwaymen, because this is where this story breaks off for the capture of Bonnie and Clyde. Frank Hammer, Hamer, was the most famous Texas Ranger, and he was basically contracted to go track Bonnie and Clyde, because now they're responsible for 12 murders. Someone has to bring them down, and the local cops, they can't do it, apparently. In fact, the local sheriff in Dallas got a lot of shit. In one paper in particular, the headline reads, "Sheriff evades Clyde." Like, the sheriff barely gets away from Clyde, kind of like making fun of him. Yeah, so everyone...
That is embarrassing.
Yeah, it's very embarrassing. No one could catch these people at all. And the fact is, they kept coming back to West Dallas to their family. They would always come back to see their family. Frank Hammer, he knew he was going to be in Louisiana, and there was a reenactment. Unfortunately, the actual murder wasn't filmed, but a day later, a reenactment to show the public of what happened. They set up an ambush on this road that they knew they were coming down, and as soon as they heard that Ford V8, because that was one of the telltale signs, Clyde always drove that Ford V8, and you can hear that over any other car. They were coming down the road, and as soon as they got to a certain point, now it took 3 days of sitting out there in the bush before anyone came down the damn road. But when
Worth it, apparently.
when he finally came down the road, they lit him up.
It looks like the car, fellas. That's him for sure, I'll guarantee you. Get ready now. If he reaches for it, let him have it. Look down.
And they had a bunch of people.
Yeah, there were
Wait,
6 of them in total, yeah. And they all had BARs, man. Frank Hammer, he wasn't, like, he was contracted to bring them dead or alive, but basically that mean he was going to bring them dead. And they shot him.
Yeah, there is no way to bring them alive, really.
This was 9 in the morning. And as soon as they started shooting, the bodies were just bouncing off the inside of the interior. Boom, boom, boom. Each body was shot more than 25 times.
Wow.
Yeah. One of them, one of the police went around, opened the door. Bonnie fell out into his arms. She still had a pulse, but when he pushed her back in there, she was dead. So you see, they're just shooting the hell out of the car. The Ford V8 rolls to a stop, and then it kind of goes in the ditch, and that's where they are now. And that's the actual car right there. That's the car.
Here is Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker, who died as they lived, by the gun. Bonnie is seen leaning against Clyde. Clyde was a master gunman. Seldom did anyone ever live when Clyde got the first shot.
Now, they take the car, and in the local town of Louisiana, they drive the car, or they pull the car through the town so everyone can see the celebrities that everyone's been raving about. They can see what they really look like. I think it was kind of a, oh, you want to worship these celebrities, guys? Well, here they are right here kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's kind of sick.
And it was also a testament, like, don't screw with the law, you know? Bonnie and Clyde never got to fire a shot. They had their rifles and shotguns right there. They never got to fire a shot. This is 9 in the morning. They died with each other. And one of the romantic things, if you will, when all the shooting had ceased, Bonnie, her body was slumped over on Clyde. So it was like they were together at last, even in death. And Bonnie's mother had tried to convince her for many years not to go this route because the entire family knew, both families knew that this was going to happen.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's no other way that this can end.
Exactly. But Bonnie was so loyal, she knew she was going to die, but she wanted it to be with Clyde because she knew Clyde was going to die. So it was like romantic too, you know?
Yeah.
Frank Hammer, he wasn't paid a lot of money to come back and do this. It was like $180 a month. But one of the incentives for him to do this was any possession of Bonnie and Clyde, including all the weapons, he can have.
Whoa.
You know, and selling those things to the press and collectors, and even to this day, was people would pay an exorbitant amount.
He did take a lot of that stuff?
Yeah, he took all of it and sold it to whoever.
Damn, he made rich.
Yeah, he made a lot of money selling all this stuff. But anyway, that's my story on Bonnie and Clyde. You know, I had a lot of fun researching this story. And go watch Highwaymen on Netflix. Also, be sure to subscribe because every Thursday we are doing an episode exclusively for our community. We call them Talco Specials. They could be hometown murders or just whatever murder they're interested in. So if you have a story for me to do and you want me to research it and dedicate it to you, go to talkmurder.com/join. Become a Talco Supremo, part of our community. Get some swag, get a nice-ass t-shirt. Get shouted out all over the place. And get your story done for you by me. And I put in a lot of research in these stories. I'm not just going to half-ass it for you. I'm going to give you details that you were like, damn, how did I not know that before? I research these things very thoroughly, and I will research it for you. So go to talkmurder.com/join, become a Talco Supremo, support the little guys, support us, the podcasters. We're not CNN, CBS, ABC, any of this shit. We are just 3 people, all with 3 different jobs. We decided to use a little free time we have to bring you guys an awesome podcast known as Talk Murder to Me. Subscribe, share, tell your friends. We love you. And most importantly, keep it gangsta.